Bentley Raceway and Cable Management. BSM interaction with Promis for Rail, a possible workflow. In the functional model, you see here a possible workflow to import Excel cable lists and Excel equipment lists from Promis.e for Rail into BRCM project database. A next step, it is possible to create a detailed 3D raceway design to show detailed 3D equipment and to create different reports, for example, cable pull cards or a 2D extraction. Also, an export to LumenRT is possible. Here are the workflow steps. First is the attachment of the Promis.e for Rail model drawing. Next is to import the equipment positions exported from Promis.e Rail and to import the cable lists from Promis.e Rail. In the raceway drawing, and next step, it is possible to convert lines into raceway systems in BRCM. And in second step, to add raceway parts used or needed as additional parts, or to change the converted parts from lines to raceway in other parts. In the cable management drawing, later it is possible to do the automatic routing, which will connect automatically from source to target equipment, the cables, and route to the possible raceway systems. And as additional output, a 2D extraction is possible, including information and section cut settings with spare information in the raceway parts. The first step in the equipment drawing in Bentley Raceway and Cable Manager is to import the drawing from Promis.e for Rail. So in the reference manager, it is possible to select the drawing and to import the drawing into the equipment BRCM drawing. In the second step, it is possible to import the equipment positions from the Promis.e for Rail. So here in my Excel file, you see information about the ID and X, Y, Z coordinate. Using that settings and the configuration file for equipment import, it will show here in the next views what is possible to import. You see here KB1 and KB2 are manholes, KD is a panel, KM is a panel, and TRF is the transformer. Now it is possible to import all together with the same symbol, but it's also possible to select only a few of them and to import the selected with one symbol and the next one with another symbol. So here, for example, you see a previous defined panel. It's a panel with that sizes, and I want to create that equipment using that panel visualization, and with OK, it will add the panel to the location. Here you see from the Promis.e drawing. If I repeat the same command and select in the second step, for example, the TRF for the transformer, I will select here a different visualization, a different symbol. So here in the preview, you see here a different symbol with size 1 meter to 1 meter, 1.5 meter for that transformer box. And that will add also the transformer. And then a third step, for additional symbolic, it is also possible to import the manholes. So I select both here and select a different visualization. You see here a manhole with size 1.50 meter in height and 1.15 meter in diameter. And that will also add the manholes to the drawing. And visible here you see in 3D the manholes, the panel, the transformer, and the second panel and the second manhole. Now I want to import also the cable data exported from Promis.e. So I will use a different Excel document exported from Promis. And here in the cables sheet, you see information about cable ID, from ID to ID, voltage level, and a cable type. Using a configuration file for that import, we'll show in the next dialogues the possible import. Here you see all the rows listed. And if I accept, you see also here the collaboration manager showing which voltage levels possible to be imported to LV and control, for example. And in the last dialog, here you see all the cables listed before with detailed information for each cable. But if I select all and accept and update, it will import all the cables in the BRCM database. And the last step here in the equipment drawing is to check the ID manager, because in the ID manager, it shows here all the voltage level and the panels. And with automatic equipment map, you see here, it shows now all the IDs already connected to the equipment because it was inserted with the same ID in a previous step. And so it's possible here to view KD, for example, KM, or the transformer itself here in the drawing. I continue here in a separate drawing, the Raceway drawing. So here I selected the Raceway drawing, and in the Raceway drawing also the file from Promis.e is attached as reference file. And here it is possible to select lines, for example, from that conduit here, and to convert that line into Raceway systems or conduit again. So if I select that center line and use the Raceway generator, here it is possible to select, for example, conduits with manufacturer selection and a variant from that manufacturer, let's say 90 millimeters. And here, for example, for low voltage cable, and that will create here a separate conduit inside the drawing. Also possible is here to select multiple lines if it's the same, and to say, okay, convert lines to that same system. That will add that conduits here. For trench system, you see here from Promis.e, it's not directly possible to create a trench system from a line, but it's possible to create a trench system with settings. So I have defined here a trench system with the same dimensions as from Promis.e here, and also added two supports. To one support to the left, it's a 50 millimeter support for low voltage. And on the right side, I will use a support for control. With OK, Now it is easily possible to select points from that reference file and to create, for example, here that trench system using the points. And so you see it will show the trench system, including the supports here inside the drawing. What I also need is to do a little bit manual configuration, is to connect here that conduit to the line inside the trench for example low voltage and control. Though that is possible to create cable routes with a voltage level, for example for low voltage, and to select here the point and superb point to the low voltage system. Have to do it here for second. It's here from the transformer symbol. And the third one is here to connect the conduit here again to that line inside the trench. I did it now here only for low voltage. If there exists a second conduit, for example, for the control stuff, it's also necessary to add. Also possible is, for example, to copy the existing Raceway system and change settings in the next step from low voltage to control, for example. So we have a second conduit with a separate voltage level. We'll do the same here for or at a transformer. And the last one here at second panel. But again, I need an routing line for control to connect from the conduit to the routing line inside the trench for control. So I have possible connections. You see here, it's also possible to add the trench ID. Also possible is here to add a Raceway ID to name, for example, here the conduits as you like. We'll save that drawing. Next step, I will continue in our routing drawing. So it's again a separate drawing. The point because of separate drawing is so it is possible to work with more than one user in one project. So one can work in equipment drawing, a second one in Raceway, and a third one in routing if necessary. In the routing drawing, we will do the automatic routing First step is here to start the cable manager, which shows all cables imported in previous steps. And here, after I did the auto connect in the first start from the cable manager, it shows all the cables with length information. And the lengths from cables are here calculated from the connection, the orthogonal connection from 2. But it's also possible to switch off orthogonal and show, for example, the direct connection. So that will show the shortest direct connection from source to target. And if I update lengths, you will also see here the length is 70 meters, for example. After that connection, it is possible to select all and here to start the routing manager. And I will do the automatic routing for all the cables. And you see I got here 3 hits and 2 failed. And you see here the hits are listed here in the auto route. And if I visualize, for example, the control cable here, it will show the connection from source to target using the conduits and the trench here. Or in that cable, it shows here the connection using the low voltage conduit and the low voltage line in trench system. It is possible here to check because there are some cables are not routed, but let's continue and refresh the routing model. That will also change the colors inside the drawing, and with Raceway Fill Info it is possible to visualize. And so we see here, for example, the visualization from exist white, green and yellow ones. A white one means that's a Raceway part here inside the trench with 100% spare, there's no cable on. A green one means here is one cable on and the fill is 0.3%, so 99.7% spare. And if there is a yellow one, see here, there are one cable in and here's the spares only 32%. So that's also maybe the reason you see only one cable routed inside, because it's not enough spare to route a second cable with same dimension, for example. And it shows here for each, so that's the control part and the other part is the low voltage part. In the cable manager itself, it is possible here to select all and, for example, to create a report, a cable drums list. In the cable drums list, it will list, if it is available in our data set, how many cables or how many drums you need from each cable type and which cable shall be cut from which drum. Here it's only one, so it's no problem. And it's possible to save as Excel file here. And another very useful output is here to select one of the cables, for example, and to create a cable pull card. A cable pull card will show detailed information for each cable with project information, length and CID from location and ID to location ID, cable type, cable size. And here you see the route used by that cable. It will start with an additional length from 1 meter, an air gap to the trench or conduit. Then here are Raceway parts with IDs or without IDs, and at the end an additional length. And so we have detailed information about each cable, which Raceway parts shall be used. Additional outputs are possible in the output manager. In output manager here, for example, it is possible to select all data and to create a bill of quantity. A bill of quantity means you will see here a list showing all the cable tubes, routing lines or supports, here vertical connections, manholes, the cabinet type 1 and type 2, for example, the trenches, and the concrete parts are listed here in that document. And if you anything changes in the drawing, you can create very easily a new bill of quantity. Other possible outputs are detailed cable lengths, for example, which will show for each cable type the total length from that project. And here, detailed raceway schedule, for example, will show the raceway ID and the length and what kind of system it is. So different outputs possible you see here in that list. In an additional step, if required, it is possible to create a 2D extraction with section cuts and a separate drawing. So I will open the 2DX drawing here. In that drawing, I had attached the raceway and the equipment drawing as reference files, and selecting all the information here in that drawing and pressing the 2D extraction, it will create a 2D extraction here to see in top view with conduits, with a, for example, shading here, and the trench with a shading, and also with the equipment symbols at the end, or the manholes if required. And in next step, it is possible to create a section plane with size definition here, for example, and let's say I want to add it here in that part of trench. See here, that will be the section cut. Also possible is to create more than one here and maybe a second one to the conduits here. With that setting, it is now possible to change to a sheet. Here I created a serial sheet and also attached the 2D view in as reference here inside. And so you see here the 2D for a printout, and also you see here the section cuts. And so next step, it is possible to create a section from the section cut. So if I select here that section cut, there's a huge number of possible outputs possible. I will start with a Raceway table here, for example. If I press OK, that will add here the name from that section. And next step, it is possible to place the details here, for example, in the table 1. And here also for section 1, the table 2. In the first table, you see the Raceway IDs with voltage levels, fill, and type and sizes and elevation. And in the section 1, table 2, you see the Raceway ID again, but now also the cable numbers and cable types, cable sizes, cable weight, and the quantity from cable. If I select the second one here, let's say that's section 2, and I will use here accumulated cable info from that selection. That will show here for Raceway category 1 is low voltage, 2 is control. You see here cable type inside low voltage and control, cable size, cable weight, and quantity. And a lot more outputs are possible. That is a possible workflow for integrating data from Promis.e for Rail. Thanks for attending. Goodbye.